friends and comrades. This is a historic occasion. Historic because, as Comrade Riaz said, after 22 years, the All India SFI conference is taking place in in Kerala, and that in Kozhikode, which has its own history of syncretism, of inclusion, of tolerance, of resistance, of fighting for human values. This is historic also because it takes place at a time when all around us the clouds of inhuman activity, of capitalist aggrandizement of an unprecedented order, where a plutocracy of billionaires are trying to determine the new world order, where academic institutions, universities, which speak for truth, which speak for liberal values, which speak for academic freedom, for freedom of expression, are being gutted mercilessly and ruthlessly across the world, where the dark, obscurantist forces of religion are being unleashed against the humane values of equity, of fraternity, of inclusion, of growth, of excellence. As students, which the Students' Federation of India largely represents, this is a defining moment. And for me, as I'm sure for all of you, particularly in my generation, it is very heartening to see the energy, the determination, the strength, the doggedness, the tenacity in the young faces here who are saying, without expressing it in as many words, we will not let this happen. You are the future. You are the future, but those who will deny you that future are in your way. And you will fight them, as very few can. In India today, if there is any force which is frontally attacking or resisting the dark forces of the RSS and the BJP, it is the left. It is the communist movement. It is the allied fronts of that movement. It is not, unfortunately, the legatees of the freedom movement, the Congress. It is not many of the others. It is true that it's a broad alliance that needs to fight the RSS and the BJP, but in the front, building this together, is the left. The forces of the left are the hope of preserving the sanity, preserving the excellence, preserving the idealism that youth must represent. Look at what is happening in universities of international repute like Harvard. There are raids taking place, arresting students. Look at what is happening in what is commonly celebrated as the crucible of freedom in the world, wrongly, but celebrated as such, in the United States of America. They are turning their army on their own people. They are suppressing protests, all because a coterie of plutocrats, of digital capitalists, of an order the world has never seen before, in collusion with a state which is almost a mockery for a state because it is run by a person who says, I am the state. The Trumpian state is a state like Louis XIV of France. I am the state, after me the deluge, and before me the deluge. This whole combination is dictating or trying to dictate a new world order where the moral compass is broke, where sense of ethics and decency and propriety are thrown out of the window, where truth is a casualty, where double standards flourish. Women and children are being killed in a genocide in Gaza ruthlessly for the last several months, for a year now. And the mainstream media in the world talks about it as if it is a new normal. This is the new normal of our lives. There will be that pocket where people will continue to be killed. We will continue with our lives. We have seen how hypocritically Israel is allowed to unleash violence, bombard, invade aerial space of other nations, launch ballistic missiles with impunity. And when a nation resists that, that is considered an aggrandizement. Immediately there are calls for ceasefire. This double standard, this hypocrisy is continuing unleashed across the world. And the people are protesting. People like you, the youth of this country are protesting. The youth of this world are protesting. In Los Angeles, in New York, in cities in New York, I've been there for the last month. You can see the vibrancy of that protest. They are saying, we will not let this happen. Much of this is not reported, unfortunately, in the mainstream media. If it is reported as some kind of malaise, some kind of disease, some kind of pathology. Fighting for human values, fighting for the rights of people, fighting for the downtrodden, fighting for the deprived is in today's value system considered a disease, a pathology which ought to be corrected and cured. That is how warped our value systems have become. That is how broken the moral compass is today. It is to set this right that the youth of the world are taking the lead. And in India, the organization that you represent, this Students' Federation of India, with its track record, will, I am sure, continue to play a leading role in this struggle. Look at what is the arrogance of those in power. There is this whole theory that after the Cold War, we have passed into a post-ideological phase. Our comrades from Tamil Nadu, the SFI comrades, they presented the gangster rap gang. Wonderfully, the protest, their response to the idea that communism is dead in the post-ideological phase. It is not. It has become even more relevant. It has become even more valid and important and crucial if human sanity and human ideals and human rights must continue. But look at what the world is doing to it. The ideological drama, we say there is no ideology. If you consider the big multinational, shall we say, digital capitalists like Musk and Peter Thiel and so on, or the Vice President J.D. Vance in the United States, who are digital capitalists of an order the world has never seen before. This is capitalism unimaginable. They have an ideology. In fact, some of them have a group from the Stanford days where they have a guru. The guru, of course, did not say what they think they said. They talk about what's called imitative capitalism. It's a new form of capitalism. It's a virulent form of capitalism. Mimetic capitalism is a term they use. In other words, what they are saying is capitalism is not just the primitive accumulation that Marx spoke about. It is you want to be better than the other person who is a capitalist. So it's a kind of one-upmanship among capitalists. So the entire endeavor of economic activity, of market forces, should be to fulfill this imitative capitalist ardor or aspiration. Entire generations of, or entire sections, demographics of population are left out in the cold in this process. Imagine a world which is converted into a competition among the billionaires and creating and acquiring and sustaining markets to sustain that competition. That is what we are into today. It is, in some sense, the Marxist idea of commodity fetishism, but it's far more than that. It's a newfangled idea. And this has to be fought. And the people who are seeing it in front of their eyes are fighting it. There may be some things we disagree with. A young mayoral candidate in New York called Zohran Mamdani. But when he speaks the language of the common man, and when he wins the mayoral primary candidacy for the Democratic Party, the President of the United States calls him a lunatic communist. This is how they view anything which is not of the far right. Anything on the left is stigmatized. Anything on the left which is democratic, which is socialist, which speaks in terms of inclusion, is stigmatized. That is the larger world picture. Here in India, we have a mirror image of that under the BJP government, where the RSS agenda is being fulfilled methodically, day after day, month after month, year after year. We have seen how they tried to gut our universities. We have seen what happened to Jawaharlal Nehru University and other universities. There's a direct aggrandizement of these universities. And yet, election after election, the left bounces back to power in JNU and they don't know what to do about it. Because the youth see the truth. Youth see the value of truth. They cannot be misled. They cannot be derailed. They cannot be, led away from the core values which they believe in. In addition to this frontal attack of universities, they use constitutional positions, including that of the gubernatorial positions, the governors of various states, to be the cat's paw, to, shall we say, literally castrate the universities, to create a new educational system which talks about obscurantism, which looks for values in mythology, not even in history. And when there is a resistance to this, people will be called lunatic communists. So there is a combination of these forces, a dangerous collusion of these forces internationally and in the context of India today, even in India. And when it comes to fighting this, the left plays a very crucial role. As you know, India Bloc was India Bloc not because the left has a big presence, but because it has the integrity, it has the credibility. Comrade Sitaram Yechuri, as we know, played a crucial role in the formation of the India Bloc to fight the BJP RSS forces. And after him, you can already see that it is in tatters. Why does this happen? It happens because of the credibility, the principled stand of a party, of a movement, of the allied fronts that carry this whole ideology forward. We are not in a post-ideological phase. You need to be even more ideology. The solution to the current problem is not abstinence from ideology, as unfortunately a section of the youth seem to be thinking. They are beginning to become apolitical or anti-political, which is what the status quo wants. This is what the BJP RSS kind of ruling establishment wants, because they want people who will just listen to what they say. They want herds who will just be mobilized and become street fighters. We are seeing that, the lawlessness. If you want to show a film in India today, it's not enough to get a censor certificate. You must make sure that the street gangs don't pillage the theaters. that they allow the film to run. Constitutional machineries, establishments are being destroyed, are collapsing. We are seeing a conflation of the idea of the state and the person. We see that happening in the US, we see that happening in India. I am the state, as Louis XIV would say. We see a collusion or a conflation happening when it comes to West Asia, when it comes to the Palestinian rights, where you conflate artificially, deliberately, mischievously, anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. Zionism is a poisonous, dangerous ideology, and any rational person will oppose it. But if you today oppose Zionism, they'll say you're an anti-Semite, you're anti-Jew. This is a conflation deliberately brought about. In India, the counterpart is a conflation of Hinduism and Hindutva. Hinduism is a religion, and in a free country like India, we practice. There are lots of Hindus. Some of us are Hindus by name, by birth, may not be practicing Hindus. But Hindutva is the equivalent of Zionism. It is the acute, poisonous construct out of Hinduism. But today, if you oppose Hindutva, you are called anti-Hindu. And immediately you are associated with minority, with Islam, and Islam per se is seen as anti-national. There's a whole mythology, a whole dangerous mythology being created by a party and by this political front called the RSS, or the cultural nationalist front called the RSS, which is dabbling in our culture, in our ancient traditions, selectively, and creating a new poisonous India. The SFI and allied organizations are the only ones who can fight this determinedly, with tenacity. Otherwise, we will have a divided nation. Already we are a polarized nation. We are polarized culturally, we are polarized politically, we are polarized societally. And just to illustrate why Hinduism and Hindutva conflation is so dangerous, you cannot find a greater Hindu than Mahatma Gandhi. He believed in Hinduism, but he was against Hindutva. Read his latest, the book by Gopal Krishna Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson. It's called Mahatma Gandhi, I Am an Ordinary Indian. That's the title of the book. It is for the first time publication of Gandhiji's writings in Gujarati, which were not published in his collected works before, where he talks about the difference between Hindutva and Hinduism, not in as many words, where he opposes Sanatanism. He calls those who are against, who are for untouchability, those who do not allow particular castes into temples, those who other lower castes, not lower, lowered castes, there is no lower caste, we lower them, lowered castes. He calls those who do that Sanatanists. He doesn't call them Hindus. And he says Sanatanists are against Hinduism. In Kerala, he came and had a big argument with the upper class caste Nambudris here, where he argued for temple, integration, for re-entry, for all castes. And that is all reflected in this book. I would urge that you should read it. Because this is a Hindu, the personification of Hindu, the quintessential Hindu, political Hindu of this century, or of the last century, speaking, writing about what he thinks about Sanatanists. But today, if you say anything against Sanatana, you will immediately be seen as anti-Hindu. And you will be persecuted on social media or physically. So this is the kind of conflations that are taking place. And we must recognize this. Organizations like the SFI, I'm sure, will recognize this and tackle this as in the way it should be tackled. There are two aspects to, I think, the philosophy of the left that I would like to draw your attention to, which I think are very relevant today. One is the aspect of culture, which traditionally we may not have given equal importance in the left ideologies, because the Marxist ideology, as we know, is based on economic centrism. In the sense, the economic is central to Marxist ideology. Some time back, we know that academically there was a discussion on caste needing to be reconsidered. Initially, we had a simplistic synonymity, a simplistic conflation of caste and class. And that was addressed by the party, addressed by the thinkers in the party, by the ideologues. And today there is an understanding of caste as something distinctive, although it could belong to the larger context of class. Similarly, we have to redefine, relook at the concept of culture, because the enemy is using culture. The enemy is using culture day in and day out, using culture as identity, using culture as identity mark. In the Marxist tradition, we have an idea of superstructure and base. And the base is seen as economic, and superstructure would be seen as culture. Some extreme thinking on Marxist lines would think culture is even false consciousness. But there are Marxists like Raymond Williams who have argued that in the new order, we need to consider culture as important as the economic determined base. Because culture is part of identity. And when we have moved into the post-Cold War situation, there are some people who argue that we have moved from an era of ideology to an era of identity. That identity has become very important in the current realm of ideology, which may or may not be true, but we see palpably before us the cultural argument, the cultural identity raising its head, and to counter that, we need to be able to know that culture and oppose that culture. The other important thing, I think, for the youth of this country is to know the importance of digital culture and digital social media. We know that the winners in the world, those who are spreading misinformation, disinformation, false news, untruth, are doing it using social media. Modi has his own social media. He doesn't give press conferences anymore. Trump has his own social media. Paradoxically, it's called Truth Social. Now, nothing truthful about it, but it's called Truth Social. I think he had a complex about it. That's why he called it Truth Social, because he knew he was going to say untruth after untruth on that platform. So the importance of social media must be driven home, and digital media. In fact, Raymond Williams says we should not have an hoary idea of culture, the old, grand old culture, because that is what these antiquated forces are using. For everything, go back to mythology. The surgery existed in the Vedic times, that there were aeroplanes in the early, you have heard all those silly arguments. We need instead an idea of culture that is living and everyday, what you call quotidian culture, as Raymond Williams says. Culture is in the everyday, in our habits, in our behaviors, in the way we interact, in our expressions, in our songs, in our poems, in our protests, in our lives. So demystify the idea of culture, but deal with culture. We cannot run away from culture. Demystify it and question the values that these so-called cultural ambassadors are putting before us. I think once we have mastered the social media, I'm sure SFI and organizations like that are active in social media, but the opposition is so overwhelming in that area, so dominant in that area, that they are able to peddle a lot of untruth, a lot of nonsense. The famous philosopher Nietzsche said something which came true in the 1930s Germany of Nazis. He said, the history of truth is the history of the longest lasting falsehood. In other words, the history of truth is the history of the longest lasting falsehood. In other words, the history of lies. If you say a lie once, nobody believes you. Say it twice, thrice, 4 times, people begin to wonder, maybe this is true, that is not true. So this is the way social media is being used. But the RSS BJP combine, and we must counter that. We have to point out that this is the truth of life. This is the truth of the deprived. This is the truth of people who do not have wages, do not have a job. This is the truth of discrimination. This is the truth of exclusion. This is the truth of female infanticide, of bonded labor, of gender injustice. You look around us, it's all unequal. All a question of expression, of suppression, exploitation. So those are the truths that must be countering the kind of the new normal truths that the BJP RSS tries to put out. So I am sure that with these few words, I do not want to spend a longer time here because there is a big agenda ahead of you. My good friend Raina is to speak. I would say that if we can wed ourselves to the idea of looking at truth as we know it, not as it is peddled by social media, especially by the rightist forces, not even unfortunately as it may not be consciously peddled, but as it is reflected automatically in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media just picks up the lead from those in power, partly because they think it's easier to do it, partly because they are under threat, under direct or indirect threat. There are all kinds of forces operating on them. So you cannot unfortunately believe what you read, what you see in television, what you hear on in podcasts, cannot take it at face value. You have to interrogate, you have to question, and you as SFI are best placed to become that filter which will call out the untruth, which will call out the falsities, which will call out the misinformation and disinformation and provide an alternative narrative. And therefore, I'll conclude partly in deference to our guests from West Bengal with a quotation from Thakur, Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote this in 1930s, even before independence, about what the India he envisages would be. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world is not broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Lal Salam, Jai Hind.